Hi, good morning, everybody. This is Mr. Rader, AP World History, April 20th, 2020. And today we're going to be looking at the creation of the non alignment movement during the age of the Cold War. Our historical thinking skill for the day is going to be causation. And the question that we want to consider is why did newly independent states in Africa and Asia choose non alignment? So I want you to start with a quote from Sukarno, who was the president of Indonesia. And he says, quote, "Our socialism does not include extreme materialistic concepts, since Indonesia is primarily a God-fearing, God-loving nation. Our socialism is a mixture. We draw political equality from the American Declaration of Independence. We draw spiritual equality from Islam and Christianity. We draw scientific equality from Marx." And he says this in 1965, so I'd like you to please insert a comment into the document where you make a self-to-text, a text-to-text, or a text-to-world connection. Once you finish that, you're going to be looking at a primary source document. It was a speech given by Sukarno at the opening of the Bandung Conference, April 18th, 1955, and it is from the source Africa Asia Speaks from Bandung. What I'm going to ask you to do is consider in terms of the big question here, what message is Sukarno trying to convey to his audience at the Bandung conference? So I want you to gather evidence of arguments to not join the Americans or the Soviets in the Cold War. If you remember, in the Cold War, there were two major alliances, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, led by the United States, and the Warsaw Pact, led by the Soviet Union. And what I'd like you to consider in the second prompt is describe whether or not these arguments would convince you, if you were a member of one of these states, to actually support the non-alignment movement. So please do make comments in the margins. So this gives you some context for the document itself, speaking to a meeting of Asian and African states. So this is the document itself. It's a little over a page in length. And when you finish reading the document, what I'm going to ask you to do is take a look at this map. This is the map of the original 1961 non-alignment movement conference attendees. And you can see it's from countries from all over the world with a focus on countries from Africa and from Asia. So what I'm going to ask you to do for this activity is to consider why many post-colonial states chose to join the non-alignment movement. And I'm going to ask you to create a brief public service announcement, a PSA, in the form of a short tweet that answers this guiding question above. And that'll do it for that lesson. I'm going to just quickly go to the PowerPoint so that you can see some key components related to the lesson. So it's the same thing we discussed in the Do Now. The overview for the Bandung conference. I wanted to show you this particular image. I thought it was really interesting. What you're looking at is a document that is called Resolutely Support the Anti-Imperialist Struggles of the People of Asia, Africa, and Latin America by Zhou Ruiz Huang, who was a Chinese artist whose work was often used to present messages for the Chinese government. The painting below is intended to develop connections between the Communist Revolution in China and independence movements globally. Okay, these are the directions for the PSA. This is the map again for countries that were attendees at the non-alignment movement. And this is just an example PSA from the MTA in New York City. So a couple of things to consider. Don't become a statistic. Stand back. Giving you some information related to people who were harmed by trains. Stand back, be smart, be safe. Again, simple and to the point. And that's what you want to consider whenever doing a public service announcement. And I'll end the lesson with a map of African decolonization, along with the dates in which these countries gained their independence and which European power had previously controlled that particular region, along with a area that had never been colonized by European powers. That'll do it for today's lesson. I hope everybody has a nice day. Take care.